Okay, good afternoon. My name is Clint Manguhik, and today we're doing the validation for this unit. It's part of my TAE training. So um, here's with me. Can you introduce yourself, Clint?
Hi, I'm Keen Figueroa. I'm an electrical design officer from Bidwell Engineering Services, and I'll be helping Clint the validation and assessment of this training.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Finn, a former engineering and maintenance officer in LPU Davao, as well as the same as with Clint. I'm be helping Clint for his training.
Yep. So today we will validate three unit, which is the FSK OCM002, which is engage in short and simple spoken exchanges at work, and then the second one, FSK OCM007, which is interact effectively with others at work, and the third one is the BSB CMM411, which is make presentations. So I already given you the assessment tool 1 week ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's enough time for you to review everything from target group summary and to the mapping of the assessment. So today we will discuss and we will share ideas how we can validate the three assessments. So as a start, so we have our first one, which is the FSK OCM002, engage in short and simple spoken exchanges at work. So for our assessment instruments, we have three instruments here: observation checklist, verbal question checklist, and production of an item checklist. So, yep. So for a start, the one that we need to consider is the context of the assessment tool. So the intended target group and purpose of the assessment is clear. What do you think about this?
It was clear. The learners were able to understand the purpose of the assessment that you provided. So it was like very clear, and the tools contents are like has clarity and has accuracy and has relevance.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I will agree with that. Yes.
How about B, Jonathan? Conditions of assessments.
Well, for me, I agree in this. So my comment is that the assessor satisfy the requirements in applying the vocational education and training legislation frameworks and standards. They have the sound knowledge of the AACSF and performance features and the ACSF level being assessed. So the assessor as well is able to provide the prompting and advice to the learners.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yes, well. Yes, well.
And also in validity. So does the assessment tool cover all items in the unit? So all PC or performance criteria, FS, PE, or KE? KE. So I said yes there because it covers all items in the unit. PC, FS are explicit in PC, PE, and KE.
I agree with this.
Yeah. It's here.
So how about on the next one, the mapping document provided to clearly and correctly indicate where covered?
Yes. According to the assessment plan that you have, the items of the unit were mapped like accordingly.
Yeah.
The assessment tool, so it's ensured that the elements are not missing or
Yep.
so it's all there.
I agree also with this. Yeah.
And then how about does the assessment tool integrate knowledge and skills?
Yeah, I agree with this. So the assessment tool integrates both knowledge and skills
Yeah.
by using the questioning tool to focus on knowledge components and production, and the observation tools to assess the student's skills.
Yep.
I agree with this.
Yep. And then how about the DAS? The assessment tool provide evidence that the learner can apply their skills and knowledge in a range of similar situations or contexts.
Yep, the assessment tool, the context can be applied in multiple workplace scenarios, like such as like cafes or hospitality scenarios. And the activities can be used to contextualize the context to the learner's interests or backgrounds,
Yep.
such as the environment and regional retail like situations. So it was covered
Yep.
in the assessment.
And then we go to reliability. So how about you, Jonathan, for the first?
Yeah. For the question that are the instructions to the assessors clear and sufficient to ensure will be applied the same by different assessors? Yeah, I agree with this. Yeah. But my response is positive. So the instructions to the assessors are clear and sufficient and could be applied to different assessors.
Yeah.
It was very good.
And how about the second one, Kim?
So, on the second one are the instruction to the candidate clear and sufficient that they were able to interpret and by specifically by different learners. So, as I checked the assessment plan, it was like very clear. So the instruction to the candidates are clear and sufficient that they were able to interpret consistently. Yeah.
Then the third one is there sufficient and appropriate marker guidance and suggested answers. So I said here candidate was provided with marker guidance and suggested answer according to the assessment instruments. Then we go to fairness. Are individual learner needs considered in the assessment processes? But before we go here, do you have any questions or clarification?
For now, done.
Yeah, so far
So
so
good.
good. So we during the review period, so we checked thoroughly. So
Yep.
far no question.
Yeah.
Yep. For the first one.
For the first one, the question, does the assessment tool include considerations for reasonable adjustment to take into account the individual learner's needs? Yeah, I agree with this. I said yes. Since the LLM challenges, example, write simple information, provides answers verbally.
Yep.
So on the next question for this part, is the learner informed about the assessment process and appeal process? So I said here yes, because for the start of the assessment, all the candidates were given time to review the instructions from the assessor.
Yep.
So it was provided in the instruction for assessor section, would mention on the assessment. So the learners were really informed that how the assessment process is being done and how they can appeal
Yep.
that process.
Yep.
Yep.
So we go to the flexibility. Is the assessment flexible to the individual learner? So I will go. I will here. Will the assessment design be relevant for a range of individual learners' needs, industry, or workplace? So the candidate is one of the several students undertaking a bridging program to allow them to undertake a traineeship in working as engineering draftsman. Yep, I'll put
Yep.
here. Yep. All right. So how about the next one?
For the next question, can RPL be incorporated? Yeah, I agree with this. I believe it's so. It's needed. It can be. It can be combined to the assessment too, because the context is aligned to the unit of competency. Some of the learners can relate because of the previous work experience. And also the assessment, the RPL assessment contains elements, performance criteria, required skills, and required knowledge.
Yeah.
All right. So how about the sufficiency?
So
The
for
first
the
one.
sufficiency, so the question here is the required pieces or number of numbers and any format of evidence required is clearly outlined in the tool. So based on the assessment tool, yeah, it was like very clear. So the assessor unit that made this ensure that the quality and quantity and relevance of the assessment evidence has been provided related to how to engage in short and simple spoken exchange. So it was like very clear on the assessment.
Yeah. How about you, Jonathan,
Now,
for the second one?
For the second item, the instructions ensure the tool will gather suitable quality evidence. I agree with this. I said yes. The assessor provided the learners enough time to complete the given number of tasks
Yeah,
to demonstrate the competence and to gather quality evidence from the learner. I agree.
Alright. So we go to authenticity. So does the design of the assessment ensure that the evidence presented for assessment will be the learner's own work?
Excuse me, Clint. These are all 23003. I have already corrected all of them. This one, I'm still looking for this. I gave it to you.
Alright. I'll go back to authenticity. Does the design of the assessment ensure that the evidence presented for assessment will be the learner's own work? So I put there yes, because the presentations are performed in front of the assessors, ensuring the candidate performs the task. Assessor is to sign all the checklists and feedback forms. Good.
Currency. Does the design of the assessment ensure that the assessment evidence demonstrate current competence? This requires the assessment evidence to be from the present or a very recent past. So I said like yes here, because all the instruments for the assessment tools like the questioning, the production, observation require the learners to be assessed based on the materials produced by assessor in the like actual presence and ensure the currency of the assessment. So
Yeah.
I agree with this one.
Yep. It's good.
For the next observation, for the reporting and recording requirements, in line with the evidence, a decision will be clearly recorded. So who assessed, by who, the date, and the outcome. I said yes to this. Since the assessor securely retains and produces in full and completed student assessment items for the student for a period of 6 months from the date on which the judgment of competence for the student was made. So the assessor must also retain sufficient data to be able to reissue AQF certification documentation for a period of 30 years.
Okay.
Then task instrument clearly indicate any conditions present when evidence gathered. So I said here yes, because the assessor retained the evidence that contains enough details to demonstrate the judgment of how the students performed meets the required standards and the assessment tools. The assessor can provide feedback to the student where competency has been demonstrated and where further evidence is required. So providing feedbacks shows fairness in the assessment process and allows a student to understand why a result was awarded. Yeah.
So for the last one for this part,
Yeah.
the design of the tool will clearly capture decision against each task or requirement. So I said here yes,
Yep.
because like the assessor designed the assessment tools to comply with providers' internal processes and procedures to manage administration, recording, and reporting requirements, which was like very clear in the assessment tool.
Yep.
That's why I said yes here.
Yep. All right. So do you have any feedback comment for instrument?
So far as I can see, so the instrument are correct and the instruction are very clear and provided to the candidate and the assessor. So
Yeah.
I agree with I agree with that. Yeah.
All right. So yeah. So yeah, I also agree with that because the assessment conditions are matching the plan, and they included appeals process.
Yeah, yeah.
Overall, a good tool. All right. So do you have any recommendations for the assessment?
But for me, I have none.
after reviewing, I don't have any other suggestions.
Yeah, same with me. None. So I'll just put here none. So on the number 9, you have the signature there. So just sign the document
Okay, yeah.
for the validation report. Okay, so that's our first assessment. So for the second one, which is the FSK OCM007, which is the interact effectively with others at work. So again, we have 3 instrument there, assessment instrument, which is the observation checklist, verbal questioning, and then production of all items. So again, go back to the consideration. So we have the context of the assessment tool. So there's a question there, the intended target group and purpose of the assessment. Is it clear? Yes
So,
or no?
Let me start. So I said here yes.
Yep.
Because the learners can easily understand the purpose of the assessment.
Yep.
So by providing them the overview and objective of the unit that from the beginning of the training. So the assessment tool contains clarity, content accuracy, relevance, and appropriateness of language for the learner. So it was very clear here on the assessment plan. So that's why I said yes here
Yep.
on the validation.
For the next one, in the conditions of assessment, so for the location, time restriction, resources, conditions such as must by paying clients and qualification of assessors required by units conditions are clearly addressed. I said yes to this, since the assessor satisfied the requirements in applying the vocational education and training legislations, frameworks and standards. They have sound knowledge of the ACSF and performance features of the ACSF level being assessed. The assessor as well is equipped of their own familiar support resources. So I said yes to this. I agree.
And also we'll go to the validity. So for the first one, does the assessment tool cover all the items in the unit? All PCs, FS, EE, and KE. So I put here yes, because every item in the unit has been mapped to the assessment tools to ensure no elements are missing.
Yeah.
What the second one?
So mapping document provide to clearly and correctly indicate where covered. So I said yes here because every item in the unit has been mapped
Yeah.
like accordingly so that any data will not be missing.
Alright, so does the assessment tool integrate knowledge and skills? So I said yes, because the assessment tool integrates both knowledge and skills by using the questioning tool to focus on knowledge components and the portfolio and third-party reports tools to assess the student's skills.
And for the next one, the question is, does the assessment tool provide evidence that the learner can apply their skills and knowledge in a range of similar situation or context? I agree with this, so I said yes. Since the context can be applied in multiple workplace scenarios, such as engineering workplace, and activities can be used to contextualize the content to the learner's interest or background, such as other environments within the general retail situations. Reasonable adjustments can be made to ensure equity in assessment for people with disabilities. Assessors must satisfy NVR or the AQTF assessor requirements, have some knowledge of the ACSF, and have demonstrable expertise on the vocational contextualization and assessment of the core skill, such as oral communication.
So let's go with D, the
Next part,
reliability.
yeah.
So the consideration here are the instruction to the assessors clear and sufficient to ensure will be applied the same by different assessors. I said here yes, because the assessment plan is very clear. It has a very detailed instruction have been given to the other assessor alongside marker guidelines and decision rules to avoid ambiguity and ensure consistency. So it was very clear in the assessment tool. So I said yes.
And for the next one, the question is: are the instructions to the candidate clear and sufficient that they will be interpreted consistently by different learners? Yeah, I agree with this. Yeah. The detailed instructions have been given to the candidates, and the questions have been worded as simply as possible, and the learners are encouraged to ask the assessor if they don't understand the task.
Yeah.
Alright. Okay, and then is there sufficient and appropriate marker guidance and suggested answers? So say yes. Detailed marker guidance has been provided alongside suggested answers as appropriate to ensure consistent result across different trainers. Alright. So we're going to fairness. Alright. So are you still good?
Yeah.
Keep going.
So learners, so fairness, the consideration question here are: is the assessment tool include consideration for reasonable adjustment, take into account the individual learner's needs? So I said here yes, because I see that the LLM challenges like written information, provide answer verbally, relevant to interactive effectively with others at work. So it was like all provided on the assessment.
Yeah. And for the next question, is the learner informed about the assessment process and appeals process? I said yes to this. I agree with this. Yeah. All the candidates received instruction from the assessor, and it was provided in the instructions for assessor section, both the mentioned and the described.
Alright, so we go to flexibility. Is
Okay.
assessment flexible to the individual learner? So I will go first to the first one. Will the assessment design be relevant for a range of individual learners' needs or industry or workplace? So I put here yes, because the candidate is one of the several students undertaking a bridging program to allow them to undertake a traineeship in a working career in engineering field, engineering office. So the setup is engineering construction. All right. So the next one, can RPL be incorporated? So it can be combined to the assessment tool because the context is aligned to the unit of competency. Some of the learners can relate because of their previous work experience.
I agree with this.
So the RPL assessment contains elements, performance criteria, required skills, and required knowledge. So
Yeah.
good, yes?
Yeah.
Excuse me, guys. I've just locked myself out. Can I use your table?
Yeah,
Just to-
no problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the next one, sufficiency.
The required consideration here are the required pieces or numbers, and any format of evidence required is clearly outlined in the tool. So I said her yes,
Yeah.
as well as informing the learner of what will do with the assessment. So the trainer explained what evidence the learners needs to provide
Yeah.
in response to the task. So when the learners is required to submit the evidence, like the instructions were included, like what to include in the evidence, how to submit the evidence, and how to present the evidence. So
Yeah.
it was like very clear.
Yeah.
So for the next part, and still under sufficiency, the consideration is that the instructions ensure the tool will gather suitable quality evidence. So I agree with this. I said yes. My comment is that the assessor provided the learners enough time to complete the given number of tasks to demonstrate competence and to gather quality evidence from the learner.
Yeah.
Alright. So before we proceed, do you need something or water? Or
No, I'm okay.
You good?
Oh, good.
You can go. I already drank water.
So go to authenticity. So that's the design of the assessment. Ensure that the evidence presented for assessment will be the learner's own work. So I put here yes because the presentation are performed in front of the assessor.
Yeah.
So as an assessor, I am able to witness or observe how the learner doing the task.
Yeah.
So assessor is to sign all the checklist and feedback forms.
Yeah.
So yes. How about currency?
So So the consideration here, does the design of the assessment ensure that the assessment evidence demonstrate current competence? This requires the assessment evidence to be from the present or the very recent past. So I said here yes, because all the instruments for this assessment tool, like the questioning,
Yeah.
production observation, require the learner to be assessed based on the material produced in the assessor's actual presence. So the assessor is there and to ensure currency.
Mm.
So that's why I said yes here.
Yeah. For the next part of the consideration, under the reporting and recording requirements. So under this, the first part is the evidence and decision will be clearly recorded, like who assessed, by whom, the date, and the outcome. Well, I agree with this, so I said yes. My comment is that the assessor securely retains and produces in full all completed student assessment items for the student for a period of 6 months from the date on which the judgment of the competence for the student was made. So the assessor also must retain sufficient data to be able to reissue a QF certification documentation for a period of 30 years.
Okay. Yep. Good idea. And then I go to the second one. Task instruments clearly indicate any conditions present when evidence gathered. So I put here yes, and I put also the comment here. The assessor retained the evidence that contains enough details to demonstrate the judgment on how the instrument performance meets the required standards in the assessment tools. So the assessor can provide feedbacks to the students, both where competency has been demonstrated and where further evidence is required. So providing feedback shows fairness in the assessment process and allows student to understand why a result was awarded.
So on the next one, under still reporting and record requirements, so consideration here, the design of the tool will clearly capture decision against each task or requirement. I said here yes.
Yep.
So the assessor designed the assessment tools to comply with the provider's internal processes and procedures to manage administration, recording, and reporting requirements. So it was very clear in your assessment. So that's why I said like yes.
Yep. How about you, Jonathan? Do you have any feedback or comment for instrument?
Yeah, I have this here. My comment is that the instruments are complete and the instructions are clear and provided to the candidate and the assessors. Assessment conditions are matching with the plan and they include appeals process. And overall, in totality, it is a good tool and ready to be delivered to the learners.
Yeah.
All right. Good. How about recommendations for the instruments?
Well, for me, I have none. I think
As of the moment, I don't have any other
Yeah.
recommendations.
Me
or
too.
comments.
So again, there's names that where you can put your rule and also your organization and then the signature and the date for today. So we're all good.
well, good, yeah.
So go to
The last one?
Yep. So we have another the last one, the third unit, which is the BSB CMM 411, which is make a presentation. This is very important, especially in the engineering field or engineering setting. So yeah, again, we have 3 instruments here, which is the observation, verbal questioning, and then the production of all item. So for first consideration, so I'll go with this one. Context of the assessment tool, the intended target group, and purpose of the assessment. Is it clear? I put here yes, because the learner can easily understand the purpose of the assessment by providing them with an overview and objective of the unit from the beginning of the training. The assessment tool contains clarity, content, accuracy, relevance, and appropriateness of language for the learners.
Yeah.
B, so conditions of assessment. So location, time restriction, resources, conditions such as the paying clients and qualification of the assessor required by units conditions are clearly addressed. I said here yes.
Yep.
So the assessor satisfy the requirements in the applied vocational education and training negotiation frameworks and standards. So
All right.
yeah,
Yep.
it was like met. Assessor met
Yep.
everything.
How about in validity?
Yeah.
invalidity. So the first one here, does the assessment tool cover all items in the unit? All PCs, FS, PEs, and KE? Yes, I agree with this. It was all covered. So my comment is that there was a complete mapping and shows where all aspects are assessed and all assessment tools have been issued. For example, the PCs, the PEs, the KEs, and the FS.
So mapping document provided to clearly and correctly indicate where covered. So I put here yes because every item in the unit has been mapped to the assessment tools to ensure no elements are missing and all sections are covered. So yes.
So for the next one, still under validity, does the assessment tool integrate knowledge and skill? I put here yes.
Yes.
The presentation delivered allows for knowledge of principles of effective communication to demonstrate in the assessment. So that's why I said yes.
Next one, does the assessment tool provide evidence that the learner can apply their skills and knowledge in a range of similar situations or contexts? I agree with this. Yes, the assessment has provided that. My comment is that the evidence showed that all provided assessment tools could be applied, tailored and contextualized to different contexts. It has been demonstrated in PC 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, PC 2.2, and PC 2.5.
So we'll go to
Reliability.
liability.
Can start.
Yep.
Okay.
Are the instructions to the assessor clear and sufficient to ensure will be applied the same by different assessor? So I said here yes because instructions to the assessor are clear and sufficient and could be applied by different assessor.
I also agree with that.
Yep. Second one.
Next one, are the instructions to the candidate clear and sufficient that they will be interpreted consistently by different learners? I agree with this. Yes, absolutely. My comment is that the task instructions state to develop and deliver a presentation with exact indication and requirements for time. Guidance on what will need to be demonstrated during the presentation is clearly provided, such as students understand that what they would expect.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on to the next one, I'm still under reliability. Is there sufficient and appropriate marker guidance and suggested answer? I put here yes, because the assessor guidance on what will be required to be demonstrated during the presentation was clearly provided.
Yep.
And like the assessor was provide the templates for the sessions plan and the feedback form was provided. Then the instruction on how to use the templates were also given. They are to be completed prior to the presentation, so it was like very clear before
Yeah.
the students do anything.
Good. So I'll go to fairness. Are individual learner needs considered in the assessment process? So for the first question, does the assessment tool include considerations for reasonable adjustments to take into account the individual learner's needs? So I said here yes because reasonable adjustment options are detailed in assessment plan, suitable for range of adjustments and contextualization to suit different individuals.
Yeah. For the next question, is the learner informed about the assessment process and appeals process? I agree with this. I said yes, and my comment that all stated in the instruction to the candidate and ensure that the candidate is ready for the assessment,
Yep.
aware of the easy processes, and they have the right to appeal.
Okay. And then we will go to flexibility. Is assessment flexible to the individual learner? What can you say about here?
So on the consideration here, will the assessment design be relevant to the range of individual learners, industry or workplace? I said here yes, because allows them to develop presentation relevant to their occupation or area of interest in the task assessment. So that's why I said yes here, because they can use the presentation skills
Yeah.
in different areas in their job.
For the next one, the question is that can RPL be incorporated? I agree with this.
Yeah.
It can be, yes. I said yes to this. So it can be combined to the assessment tool because the context is aligned to the unit of competency Some of the learners can relate because of their previous work experience. The RPL assessments contain elements, performance criteria, required skills, and required knowledge.
All right. Then I'll go to sufficiency. So the
Yeah.
required pieces of numbers in any format for evidence required is clearly outlined in tool. So as well as informing the learner of what we'll do in the assessment, the trainer explain what evidence that needs to explain, what evidence that needs to provide in response to the task. When the learner is required to submit evidence, the instruction includes what to include as evidence, how to submit the evidence, and how to present the evidence. So I put here yes.
On the next one, the instructions ensure that the tools required with suitable quality evidence. So I said here yes because there were two 30-minute presentation, which means the candidates were observed twice for their
Alright.
competence. So that's why I said yes here.
Yes.
For the next one, for the next observation on the authenticity. So the question is that, does the design of the assessment ensure that the evidence presented for assessment will be the learner's own work? I agree with this. I said yes. My comment is that the presentations are performed in front of the assessor, ensuring that the candidate perform the task. Assessor is to assign all checklists and feedback forms.
In currency, does the design of the assessment ensure that the assessment evidence demonstrates current competency? This requires the assessment evidence to be from the present or the very recent past. So I put here yes because the assessor is assured that the assessment evidence demonstrated currency competency, and then the assessment dated within the last 12 months.
That's very recent.
Yeah.
So let's move on with reporting and recording requirements. So the first one, evidence and decision will be clearly recorded. So it was like who assessed it, by whom, date and outcome. So I said here yes, because the assessor securely retains and produce in full all competent student assessment items for the student for a period of like 6 months
Yeah.
from the date in which the judgment and competence for the student were made. So also the assessor must retain sufficient data to be able to issue a QF certification documentation for the period of 30 years. So like the assessment tool covers all of that.
Yeah.
For the next one, the task or instruments clearly indicate any conditions present when evidence gathered. I said yes. I agree with this. So the assessor to retain the evidence that contains enough details to demonstrate the judgment of how the student's performance meets the required standards and the assessment tools. The assessors can provide feedback to the student, both where competency has been demonstrated and where further evidence is required. Providing feedback shows fairness in the assessment process and allows a student to understand why a result was awarded.
Yeah. And then the design of the tool will clearly capture decisions against each task or requirement. So I put here yes because the assessor designed the assessment tools to comply with the provider's internal processes and procedures to manage administration, recording, and reporting requirements. Alright, I think that's all for this validation.
We don't have any more.
Do you have some comments here, Kin?
So I think the instruments are complete and instructions are clearly provided to the candidate and the assessor. So assessment conditions are matching with the plan and they include appeals process. So overall, I think it's a very good draft.
Yeah.
But if you have anything that could
Just to
improve,
improve,
yeah,
yeah.
it would be very nice. But
Yeah.
overall, it's great.
It's great.
How about recommendation for this unit?
Well, it's good. I said for me it's good. So I have no recommendation anymore.
Yeah, so far, I think it's already like good. So I don't also have any other recommendation.
Same thing with me. Alright, so again, for the third unit, we have our, you can put your names, signature, then just your rule, and also your organization.
Alright.
I think that's all for our reports, and also we have here our feedbacks. So you have the feedback form there. So I already gave it to you 1 week ago. So I think you already have some comments there and
Mhm.
feedback. How about you, Jonathan? Do you have in the feedback one?
Yeah, I have some here. Observation, verbal questioning, and production of an item are collegial, professional development and approach that encourage learners to analyze, critique, practice, reflect, and revise instructional practices, especially in engineering field. These three tools for the unit of competency were good, especially on all the written questions were clear and complete. It holds all the validation record.
Mhm.
The assessment evidence provided are sufficient for a judgment.
Yeah. All right.
That's my observation.
Alright. So how about you, Ken? Can you tell me your feedback regarding the second unit?
Yeah, for my feedback, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 feedback. So the assessment conditions I've mentioned and explained, like the appeal process, it was very clear.
Yep.
Assessment condition are matching with the plan that you made. So the instruments are complete. Instruction are provided to both assessors and candidates. That was very clear.
Yep.
And lastly, as mentioned in our very first meeting when we first discussed this one,
Yep.
we were discussing the units we use. I suggest changing the certificate level to. I suggest to change the certificate 1 level unit. So
Okay.
I hope you could consider that one.
Yep. No problem. I'll take note of that one. And also, I have my feedback for the third unit, which is the make presentation. So I said here a general overview is included to set the context of the observation, details about the environment and who is in the classroom are included. So I state the activities occurred during the observation, then document details that indicate that what the student was doing during the observation. And self-reflection refers to the extent to which one evaluates and pays attention to their internal state, where insight and more about clarity of understanding. So that's where how I observed during the deliberation of this unit. So yeah, I think that's all we have for this validation. All right. Thank you so much, Ken and Jonathan. Do you have
Thank
any
you.
feedback?
Yeah.
Or
It's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure to help you.
thank you so much.